Hello and welcome. This is Johnny Jabor with the second episode of Johnny's Jabs. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Johnny Jabor, JOHNNY, JABBOUR. And I am doing this video in preparation for the debates that are happening on Tuesday night. And the reason why I decided to do this was because when I talk to friends and family about politics, and I'm talking to them a lot about politics these days, they generally ask me, what should I feel about something? What do I look out for in the debates and stuff? And so this is a kind of preparation for the debate on Tuesday night. Which is going to be sponsored by, it's going to be on CNN and sponsored also by the New York Times. Kind of a way to get you prepared to watch it, know what to look out for, what the main issues are, who the key players are, and what all of it actually means. Why am I doing this? The reason I'm doing this is because I think that mainstream media is trash. Especially when it comes to following these candidates and describing to the American people and to the voters. Voters are American people, but describing to the voters what the candidates represent, who they are, and what their representation means for you, the voters, what you're going to get out of them. They really are not doing a service to us by not focusing on some things, over focusing on others. And so I kind of want to break down everything so that we have a better understanding of what to look for in all of them. Unfortunately, I find that mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, Fox especially, they generally talk about the candidates not in terms of what they're doing on the ground. They're talking about the candidates in terms of branding. And what do I mean by that? Generally, when they talk about, let's say, for example, Joe Biden, they'll talk about Joe Biden and his blue-collar roots, being that he's from Delaware and he used to take the Amtrak from Delaware down to Washington, D.C., and then you get this whole image in your mind that I used to take that same Amtrak from Connecticut, New York, down to Washington, D.C., back when I was studying in DC. And I recall, once you get to Delaware, you start seeing those working class cities of the mid-Atlantic. And so that's like a great descriptor. They're using all this language to kind of build up this character of who Joe Biden is. And so you have in your mind, he's this guy that rolls up his sleeves, gets to work, and he's just like you and I, blue-collar guy. But the truth is that they're not actually describing what he's doing and what the policies he's passed have been and how those affect you and me. So, the language that they bring about with branding is just pure trash. And so I kind of want to just allow you to be able to watch these debates and figure out for yourself what's going on. Unfortunately, the thing that mainstream media is not looking at that I think is probably most important and the best indicator of where these candidates stand on the issues and what they're going to actually get done for you is the money. Where are these candidates getting their money from? Who are the donors that are that they're courting, basically, to get their money? Are they going to cocktail parties with rich people to get their donations, even though all of them are saying they're only taking small donations in the primary process? Or are they getting the money from people like me and you who are just giving small amounts to the candidates that best suit our needs, I guess? So they're doing little to challenge that, how they're getting their money. But the reason that I believe that they're not challenging that is because the networks, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, and the New York Times, because the New York Times are sponsoring the debate on Tuesday, are in bed with those same the big money interests that the candidates could be accepting money from. For example, let's look at what happened this past week on CNN. There was a town hall on LGBTQ issues. I thought it was great. There were some things that they missed. Specifically, I think they missed a lot of issues regarding black trans women and black trans men as well. And you saw all the protests at that town hall about it. But forget that. Let's talk about the money with it. In between the candidates, they went to commercial. And for all the commercials that I watched, because I stopped watching after a few of them, there were commercials for PrEP. And, we could say that's a good thing or a bad thing. I guess the drug companies figured that there's going to be more LGBTQ people watching CNN at that time. So they're like, okay, let's put on commercials for PrEP. This is going to help us out. At least we'll get the population educated about it. Then they go talk to their doctors, and then that's how we sell our drugs. Okay, is that bad? Well, if you look at it as in like, okay, the drug that is the PrEP drug is specifically doing that, but it's not just the PrEP drug. The company that sells PrEP is also a company that sells insulin as well. And so there are large drug companies that are paying these networks money to run ads on TV. And I always thought that drug ads on CNN were kind of weird. It's not like I could go to the store and be like, hey, can I get this specific drug for whatever it is that I'm feeling because of whatever? I still need to go to the doctor or whatever. But they're giving them money basically and running ads for their drugs. And it just feels like it's this sleazy kind of way that the drug companies are telling CNN, hey, here's our money. Don't rock the boat too much when it comes to issues of healthcare. So that's just one way. And CNN, MSNBC, Fox, NBC, that's MSNBC, ABC, all these news agencies cannot rock the boat because of the money that they're accepting. Not just with the drug industry, but with so many other industries. And going back to this idea of the branding with the candidates, unfortunately, the networks, they talk a lot about the talk of these candidates in terms of their branding gets the voter to think about them in, what feels good rather than who does good. I call it the feel good versus the do good candidates. And so I'm trying to get people to get away from the feel good bullshit that MSNBC, CNN, Fox are selling to all of us, to actually look at the policies and look at the money and look at everything else that is actually important in terms of deciding who to vote for, who to back. All right, before I get into the actual candidates, what should we be looking for on Tuesday? We should be looking for who can best diagnose the problem and who offers the best solution to those problems. So who are the candidates that are going to be on the debate stage on Tuesday? We're going to have Joe Biden, the former vice president under Barack Obama, Pete Buttigieg, who was the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, Senator Cory Booker, Julian Castro, who was I believe is the under Obama, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard from Hawaii, Senator Kamala Harris, Senator Amy Klobuchar, Beto O'Rourke, who I think he was a former congressman, and he ran for the Senate against Ted Cruz, Senator Bernie Sanders, Tom Steyer, who is a billionaire who was running ads for impeachment against Trump. I don't know what his business was per se. I haven't followed him too much, but I will be talking about him. Senator Elizabeth Warren and Andrew Yang. All right. That's 12 people. The ones in the center are going to be Biden, Sanders, and Warren. Those are the three that are leading. Those are the front runners. And depending on the state, depending on the poll, usually it's been Biden or Warren in the lead. Bernie's been below both of them, but Like in Nevada, there was a poll that said Bernie Sanders was ahead of the rest. Uh, those are the ones to really look at. Those are the ones that have the most traction with voters right now. But then there are some other interesting ones I say that we should really look at. I think Andrew Yang's campaign is going to be go further than a lot of the others. You're also going to want to look at Kamala Harris because she has sizable backing, and Pete Buttigieg as well. I think out of that whole crew, those are the 5 that I would say are the ones that are likely to make it furthest from the rest of them. Okay, so let's go back to this idea of feel good or do good. There are lots of polls coming out of like Iowa, the early primary states, Iowa and New Hampshire, that are like, all right, who is your first choice? And you might hear something like, my first choice is Joe Biden, right? And then they might ask the same person, who's your second choice? After Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders. All right. To me, that sounds like crazy talk because like Joe Biden is someone that is very establishment. He hasn't come out for Medicare for all. And then Bernie Sanders is this leftist who is just like, I don't want to say opposite Joe Biden. They're both, I'd say Biden is center. I don't even want to say center left, but kind of center. He might believe in some of the same ideals as Sanders, but Sanders is out here in the left, really fighting for the American people and not taking any corporate money. So it's kind of crazy to me when I hear that people have these kinds of rankings among the candidates. But what it shows is that it has everything to do with branding and stuff. And so I kind of want to break it down. And specifically with that, I think that Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders branding or their appeal has a lot to do with blue collar workers. And so I think that's why you might see someone rank Joe Biden first, Bernie second, or Bernie first, Joe Biden second. Or you might see things like, okay, love Elizabeth Warren. After Warren, I want Harris, because they kind of feed the same kind of demographic. But I want to break down where the candidates actually are in terms of ideology. And so I have 4 categories. The first one is the neoliberal center-left. The second one is the liberal establishment. The third one is progressive candidates. And the fourth is wildcard candidates. The neoliberal center-left, I'd say they try to appeal to the center of the country. They're running their campaign in a way that they're like, all right, well, I need to get Republican voters or not undecided, but independent voters in addition to Democrats, in addition to the base. So they're constantly thinking, all right, how do I position myself to the center? They're trying to grab those conservative votes. And the thing that's kind of in common with all of them is that they're courting big money. The liberal establishment, I like to think of them as like the Obama types, the Obama coalition. They're kind of like bleeding heart liberals in terms of their branding, but they're not ready to really shake up the system. They might have some grassroots organizing, kind of in the way that Barack Obama did, but they do end up taking big money as well. So they're kind of playing the field like, all right, we got to get the grassroots. And at the same time, those big money donors is going to allow the campaign to have legs. Progressives, they want to shake up the system for sure. And they're dedicated to their values, and they're dedicated to their small money donors, people that are donating. I think Bernie Sanders' campaign has an average of $17 per donation. And I forget, I was about to say something crazy. I don't know if it's right. If he has 10 million donors, don't even quote me on that, forget it. But he had the most individual donors to his campaign out of all the candidates. The progressives are dedicated to grassroots organizing. And then the wild cards, I'd say they are generally, and there could be some exception, They generally too want to shake up the system, but it's like their candidacies have more to do with like certain issues than anything else. And they do depend a lot on grassroots organizing. So let's categorize all these candidates. The neoliberal center left, I would include Joe Biden there for sure. I would include Amy Klobuchar for sure. Mayor Pete, I include him because of the way that he is going for big donors, especially. He's kind of wishy-washy in terms of his language on policy. Like he does this thing where he'll position himself in one way, but he's a little ambiguous so that he could appeal to, more appeal to like different ways of interpretation. And then Cory Booker. I didn't look too much into where he's getting his money from, but I am assuming, I could be wrong, he might be in the liberal establishment. Liberal establishment, I would say Julian Castro, Senator Kamala Harris, and Beto O'Rourke. Progressives, we have Sanders and Warren. Now, I don't want people to go away from this video thinking that Sanders and Warren are kind of in the same boat in terms of everything. There are many differences among them. I just feel like it's too much to get into for this one. Just watch the debate on Tuesday and you'll see how things go. And if you see me in person, you want to text me or whatever it is, we could go into the difference between them. Or maybe I'll do another video about Sanders versus Warren. But there are plenty on YouTube anyways. And then the wild cards. Tulsi Gabbard's a wild card. She's a wild card because she's very anti-military industrial complex. She is bringing fresh ideas about the United States engagement in the rest of the world in foreign policy. That's very progressive of her, but she has other issues that I can't place her in the progressive camp. She went on David Rubin's show on the internet, and he asked her this question about, her impression of the American left not being patriotic. And I'm sorry, that was such bullshit. She didn't even challenge him on that. I cannot go for that kind of shit and say that it's progressive. She was definitely courting conservative votes with that. So I just don't see that as I can't categorize her as a progressive because of that. But she has many progressive stances on many issues, and I love her take on the military-industrial complex. Andrew Yang is a wild card as well. His main issue is this UBI. UBI is Universal Basic Income, and it has very libertarian principles in terms of saying, we're going to give every American $1,000 a month, and you spend it however you want because I'm not going to interfere. You do it. You do you. And that's American freedom. People should be able to spend their money however they want. It's a kind of very much like individual freedom kind of principle. But it has this major component of government assistance. The government is taking the taxes of the people and giving it back to all of us, saying, all right, everyone gets $1,000 a month. So it's very interesting. I like his candidacy. I'm not endorsing him, but I like where he stands on some of the issues. I think he's very interesting. Back to the idea of who addresses the problem and then who first describes the problem and then who gives good solutions. I mean, he's describing the problem well. He's talking about what's wrong with our economy nowadays, and he's giving solutions to resolve these things. So, and then I have to put Tom Steyer, the billionaire, in the wild card category, just because I guess I put him there because I don't know where he stands on the other issues. Now, his presence there is going to be controversial. A couple, I don't know how long ago it was, but Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, this congresswoman from New York, she had this quote a while ago about the morality of billionaires in a society where there is where poverty exists. And Bernie Sanders kind of echoed that sentiment. So just the fact that there is going to be a billionaire on stage with a real progressive like Bernie Sanders is going to be very controversial. So that might come up during the debate at some time. All right, let's go into the issues that I think are going to be talked about. Now, let me remind you, today is Friday. It's Friday evening, which means we have Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So these issues by Tuesday night might be completely obsolete. This is what it's like living in the Trump era. The news cycles are just crazier and crazier each day. So much happens. And so who knows if we'll even talk about this stuff. But let's back to Trump. The main issue, or I don't know if this will be the main issue, but this is going to be a big issue, is going to be impeachment. And what about impeachment? The Democrats are moving towards impeachment. There's an impeachment inquiry in the House because of the Ukraine scandal. Now, the Ukraine scandal involves someone that's going to be on the stage, Joe Biden. And that's going to be very interesting. Now, just a quick breakdown what happened. Joe Biden's son, Hunter, was on the board of Burisma. Burisma is this Ukrainian energy company, and he was paid $50,000 a month. He was put on the board of the company and paid $50,000 a month in 2014 while Joe Biden was the vice president. Now, is that illegal? I don't think it's particularly illegal. Is that unethical? It's up for us to kind of debate and see. But it kind of happened at the same time, as the annexation of Crimea, when there were things going on between Russia and the Ukraine. There's no solid evidence of misdoings between with the Bidens in Ukraine and Burisma, but Trump had gone on. Okay, I kind of got sidetracked, but the whole issue was that Hunter Biden was involved with this company, and then Donald Trump, back in July of 2019 this year, was on the phone with the newly elected Ukrainian president and basically asked the Ukrainian president to investigate Joe Biden for him. And not only did he ask him to investigate, he also insinuated on the phone that, hey, we have military assistance that can be withheld from you if you don't. Now, there's this whole debate of was it quid pro quo? Was it not? I think it was quid pro quo. Even so, it doesn't matter if it was quid pro quo. The fact that he asked a foreign entity to investigate a political opponent is impeachable in and of itself. So the Democrats, what they've been doing is they've been saying, let's go after Donald Trump. But the thing is, Joe Biden is kind of at the center of this. So it's going to be crazy to see on Tuesday night. Will the candidates go after him? Elizabeth Warren was caught off guard. I forget if it was after a rally or something. A reporter asked her if she thought it was unethical if one of her family members, one of her kids, was on the board of an energy company in a foreign country while she was president. And she immediately responded, yes. And then she's like, oh, wait, no, I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that and get back to you. So that's kind of crazy. Honestly, that kind of comes off as, I don't know, not a good look for Elizabeth Warren. I'll say that. But let's see. We're going to have to see how harshly they go after Trump for the Ukraine phone call. In addition to that, Trump was on live TV. He was giving a press conference, and he asked China to also investigate Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren. Tulsi Gabbard was not immediately for impeachment. She came out with some bullshit, like saying, oh, it's going to divide the country and all this. My whole take is there is evidence of criminal activity. and that's it. He should be impeached, and he should have been impeached a long time ago with the stuff that was in the Mueller report. I personally think there should have been investigations about what went down on the in the holding centers on the border and the camps on the border, uh, and children dying there, and I think that those are all impeachable offenses, and the impeachment has been coming for a long time for Trump. But if it takes this bullshit Ukrainian scandal to impeach him, I'm for it because I've been for impeachment for a long time. The other thing to watch out for impeachment, will they bring up the Mueller report? Will they talk about that? All right. The next issue, actually, next couple issues, two issues. They're going to be talking a lot about foreign policy at this debate, unlike the other debates. A lot has been going on in the world. We recently withdrew from northern Syria, and this allowed Turkey to go in, and now Turkey is at war with the Kurds in northeastern Syria. And Donald Trump was heavily criticized for withdrawing, and he was criticized by Republicans and Democrats alike. It seems like the Democrats are against Trump on this. I am inclined to withdraw completely from our wherever we have troops in the Middle East, in Syria, in Afghanistan, in Iraq. We should not be intervening in Yemen. We really should get the hell out as soon as possible. I'm no expert on what's been on the history between the Kurds and Turkey. I've been reading a lot about it, watching a lot on YouTube about it, listening a lot about it, trying to get a good grip on the conflict. But I feel like there is a good school of thought out there that actually Trump pulling out, even as haphazardly as it was, is a good thing. The Turks and the Kurds are kind of against each other. They've been against each other. But then they're like, the Republicans are like, oh, you're going to give Bashar al-Assad so much power, but at the same time, like, they think that he's going to then have the power to kill the Kurds or something, but the Turks are against the Kurds. But in reality, like, Bashar al-Assad is like more aligned with them. It seems I really need to get a better grip on it. I'm going to be upfront and say I don't know as much as I probably should. The conflict seems to be like a triangle, not so much a one against one and then like a two-sided thing. But at any rate, it's going to open up a lot about what's going on in the Middle East, in Iraq, and Afghanistan. It's about damn time we get out of Afghanistan. This is the longest war in American history, and we're still there. I mean, this is 2019, meaning that now troops can go into Afghanistan, be deployed in Afghanistan, who are not even alive when 9/11 happened. We went to Afghanistan after 9/11, and now we can send troops who were born after 9/11. This is outrageous. So the debate is going to talk about our role in the Middle East, our alliances in the region, our relationship with Erdogan, with Bashar al-Assad. And then I think that Tulsi Gabbard has a big opportunity here to talk about military intervention, what the role the United States plays in the Middle East. On one hand, we're so against Turkey and the Kurds going against each other, but at the same time, we've armed both of them. I mean, we continue to arm Turkey. They're a client of ours. We've armed the Kurds like crazy. Again, I don't know what the right solution is. I don't want to make a judgment right now on it. I'm inclined to withdraw on all fronts. If I had to rank the withdrawing, I guess that northeastern Syria should not have been at the top of the list. But this is, I mean, then again, this is all propaganda from the military-industrial complex, getting us to think, oh wait, we have to stay at war in the Middle East. We have to, I don't know. let's go beyond that because there's other issues as well. The next one that I think in terms of foreign policy is going to be China, or trade in general. But China and the NBA is an issue. Recently, I think it was the president, or I don't know what the names are, but the president of the Houston Rockets had put out this tweet in support of the Hong Kong protesters. And he immediately got reprimanded by the NBA, and specifically because China then decided that they're going to censor the games from the Houston Rockets. Now, the NBA has a huge market in China, and now China's like, hey, we're not going to play any games from the Rockets. Too bad now. Because his support for the Hong Kong protesters is going against the Chinese government. So this is important because it's like, all right, we have all these trade deals, we have a huge market in China for American entertainment, if you will, for American movies, for American sports. Wherever you go in the world, people just love the idea of American entertainment. And now, rather than exporting American freedom in terms of freedom of speech, we're importing Chinese totalitarianism. So it's going to be really interesting to see how we talk about this, and I guess in the bigger picture of trade. The last debate, Senator Warren she spoke about trade and how in renegotiating our trade deals, we have to keep in mind the American worker. We have to keep in mind human rights as well. So whatever is good for women across the world, for the American worker, for our ideals of freedom, we can't just go into trade deals with governments that don't believe in the same things that we do. I think that's going to be a very interesting debate. And in addition to that, in addition to the Hong Kong protests, we are seeing a lot of protests going on around the world. There's been protests in the last couple of weeks in Egypt, in Iraq, in Ecuador, and Haiti. And they all have to do with corruption. So what we're seeing in the world is a general trend towards for upheaval against the system that exists. People are coming to terms with the fact that our political systems, our institutions are not serving us. It's kind of happening here in the United States, but it really is happening around the world as well. Climate change is going to be a big issue. Since the last debate, Greta Thunberg, her coming to the United States for the UN General Assembly, brought about a lot of activism with regards to climate, and not just she brought about a lot of youth activism. So we have to answer the question for the next generations. There's also been a lot of Extinction Rebellion protests. They're blocking. I think recently they just blocked a street in New York City. But they're doing civil disturbances. Like they're saying, hey, it's not. We can't just tweet and do things to like walk in the streets and talk. We have to actually disturb things to get people to pay attention to us now. So that's going to be a big issue. The winner on this topic will need to address the cause of the issue best, and they will need to have a really appropriate way to handle it. I think tying it to corruption will win points on this issue. All the Democrats, they seem to talk the talk on climate change, but we need to see who really walks the walk. And again, this is where big money is so important. Who is taking money from the fossil fuel industry? Who is not? I can't trust someone who is taking money from the fossil fuel industry and saying that they're going to really make a concerted effort to curb climate change in the world. And this kind of goes back to the issue of trade as well. We need to, I think Elizabeth Warren said in the last debate that not only do we need to keep just workers in general, human rights, and the environment in mind not big corporations like we used to do when we draft new trade agreements with the rest of the world. Labor is going to be a big issue. Recently, there were the United Auto Workers strikes have been going on. I think it's with GM. Yeah, the GM strikes. Because the GM workers, basically what's happening is that when GM was about to go down, the workers, the narrative that they're putting forth is that, hey, we stayed loyal to you and we produced, and now you're back on track and you're making, I don't know if it's record profit, you're making profits again and you're doing very well, and now you're cutting our pay and you're cutting our benefits. This is bullshit. So they're on strike. But it's not going to be just about this and are you with the workers or not? This is going to segue into healthcare for sure. If they bring this up before they talk about healthcare, that is, because it seems that they always try to talk to Bernie Sanders about healthcare whenever the debates start. But this will segue right into healthcare. And then Andrew Yang is probably going to have his moment to talk about UBI at this moment as well. In addition to that, there are strikes. Well, I don't know, the strikes aren't going on, but the Chicago Teachers Union I think they're talking about going into strikes because they want to have they want better pay, but they're really trying to negotiate better control of what's actually going on in Chicago public schools. And then the last issue that I have is LGBTQ issues, because it was, I think, just a couple days ago that the Supreme Court started hearing testimony on cases that are going to decide whether civil rights apply to gay, lesbian, trans, queer people. And I think this is going to, yes, all the Democrats seem to now talk the talk on those issues. I think that some of them could do better talking about black trans issues and how race intersects with sexuality for the LGBTQ community. But it's really going to come to the Supreme Court, because a lot of them talk the talk, but the real issue is the Supreme Court and how that's going to determine the impact on people's lives. So it's up to the candidates to have to bring new ideas to the table, show who's committed to those issues. All of them seem to be, but there's other solutions. I think what's happening on the Supreme Court is that they're deciding, okay, do the civil rights laws apply to gay individuals? And the courts could come down, because it's a conservative court, they could say, no, it doesn't. It doesn't, because what do the justices do? They just interpret the Constitution. So they could say, oh, it doesn't say in the Constitution gay and lesbian and trans, so no, it doesn't apply to them. But what I'm looking for is which candidates are going to say, all right, we don't give a fuck, excuse my language, try not to curse, we don't give a fuck what the Supreme Court is going to say. If they don't rule on our side on this issue, I will bring about legislation and get this passed, because they could fix the laws with an amendment to, I don't know which exact law it was federally, but they could pass amendments, they could pass new laws to protect LGBTQ people. All right, so those are the main issues that I think are going to be brought up on the debates. And again, debate is on Tuesday. Anything could happen between now and then. They could talk about a lot of other issues, depending what's going on in the news. But in terms of the personalities, what should we be looking out for? First one that I wrote down was, all eyes are going to be on Bernie after the heart attack. People are going to be looking to see if he looks healthy, to see how he performs, if he's got the energy that he used to have. I'm not even going to be secretive about it. I love Bernie Sanders. I like where he stands on the issues. I like that he takes no corporate money. I like that he's not not taking any corporate money. I like that I can influence him because I can donate to his campaign. And if I don't like something that he says or does, because I donated, I can actually have an impact. Meaning my small $17 contribution to his campaign is not going to be a drop in the puddle to big corporations that are donating to him. So that's the beauty about his campaign. I just want to say, honestly, I don't care about his health. if he is alive in January of 2021, that will be the best thing if he's president, because he can form a government in his image that will address the issues that he's currently talking about now. So I don't care about, oh, is he going to survive his term or anything. One, I think he's, knock on wood, I hope he does. I hope his health stays on the road to recovery, and that he makes a full recovery, and he stays healthy and everything. Not just for him, for his family. I mean, what his family has been going through. I think his daughter-in-law just died suddenly from cancer as well. What I know about him personally, I just love him. I love his wife. And I love what he's been doing in his career and for the American people. But like I said, I don't care how healthy he is. He could God forbid he has any more heart attacks on the campaign. If he stays in it and he's the candidate, I'm still voting for him. I'll still vote for him as the Democratic nominee, just because his ideas are head and shoulders above everyone else's. That's how I feel about it. All right. Also, in terms of personalities, last couple debates we've seen Bernie and Elizabeth Warren against the world. Are we going to see Bernie against Elizabeth Warren yet? I mean, I've always said that we're in the primary season. We should really be discussing the ideas above anything. I still agree to that. I think we should be talking about the ideas. But it's kind of getting to crunch time. Who are the candidates that really are representing the ideas best and are offering the solutions best for the American people? Elizabeth Warren is the front runner. Will he go after her? That's something to look out for. Kamala Harris is going to be interesting. Her campaign has gone down. I think that she and Elizabeth Warren kind of represent a lot of the same thing. You have a lot of white intellectual liberals that like both of their campaigns, but it seems they like Elizabeth Warren's more. And it seems, I mean, I don't know if this is true. I don't have the empirical evidence, but it seems that Elizabeth Warren has taken a lot of Kamala Harris's support, and that's why she's ahead right now. But Kamala Harris, she said recently, they asked her about the Ukraine scandal and about Joe Biden, and she says to the camera, just leave Joe alone. It sounds like to me she's kind of positioning herself up to be a vice president in the event that Joe Biden wins the nomination, which is interesting because in the first debate, she went after Joe Biden hard. But if Joe Biden wins the nomination, I see that Kamala Harris. Did I say Elizabeth Warren? I'm talking about Kamala Harris. Sorry. But I see Kamala Harris kind of aligning with Joe Biden now. Beto and Buttigieg, they're going to be interesting to watch. I think that in their minds, they kind of think that they appeal to the same crowd, especially Beto O'Rourke. Like, he thinks that Buttigieg has that, young millennial appeal. And so I think Beto was trying to undercut him in the last debate, trying to see if he could get a bit of his support. Honestly, I just don't I'm not trying to be mean. I just don't think the people like either one of them that much. What Buttigieg has done has kind of been amazing. He's kind of come out of nowhere, and he's one of, he's not a front runner, but he's, in terms of the liberal establishment or the establishment candidates, they love, the establishment loves him, and for him to get that far is kind of amazing. Julian Castro is another one to look at. Will he be aggressive against Joe Biden like he was in the last debate? We see that he has it in him to be aggressive like that. Who will he go against now? I think that he might try to undercut Kamala Harris or Beto O'Rourke because he's kind of vying for that same liberal establishment, I guess, appeal. But I don't know if his appeal overlaps with the others, so we'll see. We might see Kamala Harris versus Tulsi Gabbard. Oh yeah, Tulsi Gabbard. I totally didn't mention. She is. Will she even be on the stage? Because she's saying that she might want to boycott. I think it's just a publicity stunt. But she's really taking on the DNC because of their bullshit rules about like, oh, who gets to be on the stage. They're really trying to whittle it down. They're trying to use media in order to just say who their preferred candidates are. The DNC is, we saw in the last election, they are corrupt. And I would love to see candidates like Bernie Sanders or Tulsi Gabbard talk about how corrupt the DNC is in these debates. But I wrote down Kamala Harris versus Tulsi Gabbard Part 2 because last time Tulsi Gabbard really went for Kamala Harris. And it seems she did a number on her. But I think this time Harris will be able to respond in fashion. She's going to talk about Gabbard's ties to Bashar al-Assad, which is such bullshit. I could go into Syria and the way that the media has portrayed Syria. That's a whole other video. Yeah. Tulsi Gabbard might also go after Elizabeth Warren. Tulsi Gabbard's a little rogue, and I kind of like that. I'm not going to lie. I like the rogueness of certain candidates. I like seeing them go after each other a little bit. It's important that they challenge each other and they get challenged. I think an interesting one, if it happens, Yang and Bernie. I think that Bernie Sanders and Andrew Yang have a lot of overlap. And I can say that just because they both kind of appeal to me. I like Bernie more. But Andrew Yang is the only one who could challenge Bernie from the left on certain issues. He could challenge Bernie from the left on UBI, but then he could challenge Bernie on the left on decriminalization of drugs. Bernie, if you're watching, he's probably not. But why have you not come around on the war on drugs? This is bullshit. Andrew Yang is completely right about this. We should be decriminalizing drugs. Andrew Yang was talking recently about the Portugal model. What they've done in Portugal, they've set up clinics where people can actually safely use heroin. They go to the clinics to get high, but in a safe and controlled environment. And what did that do? That actually brought down drug use, drug deaths way down. That's a great solution. We shouldn't be judging drug use in terms of criminality. We should be treating it for the public health crisis that it is. Tom Steyer versus Bernie. I think I mentioned that before. That's going to be a very interesting thing to watch. Let's see how Bernie frames the issue on billionaires. And we'll see who Tom Steyer actually is. What are the issues that he really wants to talk about? Not just impeachment, which I saw the commercials for. Maybe I should research him a little bit better for this video, but I mean, there's so much, and that's the thing. When people they ask me what's going on, there's so much. Like I don't know where to start unless you're already kind of embedded. That's why I created this video. I hope this is going to help people to figure out, what's going on in the world of politics, especially in the Democratic Party right now. I think that Amy Klobuchar and Cory Booker may get lost in the mix. They'll likely have, a good zinger or like a good moment of something or say something interesting, but I don't know. There's nothing too interesting going on there about their candidacy. There's Cory Booker. I think he does talk about race relations better than a lot of the other candidates. But, he's so establishment in terms of military-industrial complex. Like, when it comes to, I don't want to say Black Lives Matter, because now Black Lives Matter, there's issues with organization and what they represent. But let's say, like, activists that are who are talking about issues with police violence against Black people and stuff. There's issues that they have with the military-industrial complex too. So here you are, Cory Booker, been a backer of the bullshit American foreign policy that we've had in place for so long. And yeah, you support, racial justice, but, I see that as hypocrisy personally. But, oh yeah, and in terms of race relations, I mean, she's not going to be on the stage. I hope she gets to be on the stage again sometime before people get to vote. But Marianne Williamson, she really brings it when talking about race relations in America. She does better than anyone else that I've seen. Like, yeah, on one hand, I like to talk about, which candidates are the real ones that we could vote for. But that's why I like to see ideas on the stage. Get people to challenge each other. If Marianne Williamson were there, she could challenge people on race. So that's all that I got. There's going to be a lot going on. Should be interesting to watch. I hope this was helpful. I hope this wasn't too long. I always say to myself before I start this, like, let's not make it too long, but then it always ends up being super long. But, most important thing, I hope it was informative, and let's see what happens Tuesday night. I'll do another video after the debate on Tuesday. Thanks for watching.